Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Throwdown for the week of December 19th, 2020. This is our holiday special edition. For the next couple of videos, we're going to be saying that because we don't know what week any of this is going on. I'm Caleb Black. This is Luke the Big Dog Williams, our in-studio producer, the mighty Max Fury, and it's time for What If. Luke, you had a great idea for a What If, so I'm turning this son of a gun right over to you.
Okay. Was watching and studying different things as I do the night before we do these shows. And come across the idea that in 1993 there was a pitch for the WWF to put the heavyweight championship on Scott Steiner. He had the size of most of the wrestlers of that generation. He had the look,
legitimacy, and name recognition.
Legitimacy, and name value.
Yeah,
because the Steiners were huge in 92 to 93. So I got to thinking. And I did some research, and I was like, okay, what if they would have put the title on Scott Steiner? What that year's WrestleMania would have looked like? What the matches, due to the fact that Scott Steiner would have got the push against Brett rather than Yoko,
yeah,
what the matches for Mania that year would look like, and what the feud for him after that would be. And I went back and I looked at the rosters. I went back and I looked at ticket sales. Doors, who was making the most money, who was making the biggest headlines, and I did all that in a 3-hour span of time with my head spinning. And I come up with 6, I believe I said earlier, matches for that year's WrestleMania. So,
which would have been WrestleMania 9?
9.
Okay.
Which would have been Caesar's Palace.
Yes.
Now, instead of Yokozuna winning the Royal Rumble, the only way that this would have taken place was that Scott Steiner won the Royal Rumble. So, your main event would have been Scott Steiner versus Bret Hart.
And we're talking
right there in 93 would have sold crazy.
This is Scott Steiner, still a Steiner brother, fresh out of AMA college wrestling, into pro wrestling for the last 4 years. Scott fucking Steiner.
Yes. The undercard matches I would have built would have went a little like this. Hulk Hogan made his return to the WWE at WrestleMania 9.
Yes, he did.
Now, the way he made that return was he was a part of a tag team match with Brutus Beefcake versus Money Inc., and then eventually went on to the main event after Brett lost the title to Yoko.
To defeat Yoko.
To defeat Yokozuna. I don't think that would have happened if that would have happened. What would have happened is Hulk Hogan would have wrestled the Giant Gonzalez.
Okay.
It would have been another big monster for Hulk Hogan to defeat at WrestleMania.
And doesn't lose any momentum for Yoko.
Doesn't lose any... Well, not Yoko. For Hogan.
For Hogan, yeah.
It would have been that one big guy that never touched with Hogan.
Yeah.
There is video evidence out there of a house show that has Hogan in the ring pointing at the Giant Gonzalez and Gonzalez towering over him.
Yeah, I remember
It would have also been 6 years since he slammed Andre the Giant.
Yeah. So it's a good reintroduction to have him taking on a big guy.
The biggest man in the business at the time, the Giant El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez. Hogan would have wrestled the Giant Gonzalez. Also on the undercard, we would have had something that would have changed the course of wrestling history, so I'm going to skip that one for now.
Okay.
We would have had, I believe, that the Ultimate Warrior, even though he left in early of 92 during the SummerSlam and the contract disputes, I believe that if the money was right, he would have been part of WrestleMania 9, because he was still a big draw. And I think you would have put him up against the Macho Man in a rematch from WrestleMania 7.
Yeah. I love that.
Because 92 Survivor Series, he was supposed to team with the Macho Man, and they pulled him out and put Mr. Perfect in.
Yep.
But he was still under contract in 92 for that. Because he didn't walk out in 92, walked out in 91. 92, he come back and saved Hogan from Sid Justice, so he was still on the payroll. That's where I had that messed up. Him and Macho Man would have sold tickets.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you could have feuded over him backing out of the tag match.
And the promos alone would have just been phenomenal.
You had, at the time, coming off of that match that they ended up squashing shortly after the Rumble in 93, Mr. Perfect versus Ric Flair. Due to that tag match and him jumping in the Warrior spot, they did the Rumble, and then the next night on Raw, they did the Loser Leaves WWE.
Yeah.
They could have pushed that. That would have been at WrestleMania 9. You would have had Flair versus Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. Whole nother video. For the Intercontinental Championship, I think that they could have piggybacked off of that. off of the 93 Rumble, and you would have had Shawn Michaels defending the Intercontinental title against Marty Jannetty inside a steel cage.
Ooh.
Reason I say this is because around the horn between January and February of 93, Michaels and Jannetty were doing cage matches for the Intercontinental Championship. What better way? They had the Sherry blow off in the 93 Rumble where she accidentally hit Marty Jannetty with the shoe and Michaels pinned him. And then that's pretty much where they ended it.
Yeah.
I think if they would have offered the bigger time push for Mania that year against Shawn Michaels, Marty would have stuck around and probably would have been in the same light as Shawn Michaels now if he would have stuck around.
Yeah.
That would have been one of your undercards. Now here's the big one.
Okay.
The Undertaker would have wrestled Yokozuna. You needed somebody big for Yokozuna to work at WrestleMania. The Undertaker was as it actually happened, wrestled the Giant Gonzalez. But you need a big-time guy, a big monster character to wrestle The Undertaker at the time. No one was more over than Yokozuna. But what would have had to have happened is if Scott Steiner would have beat Bret Hart for the heavyweight championship.
He would have had to drop the belt.
Yoko would have had to go over The Undertaker to be considered the number one contender.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Vince McMahon pushed the monster foreign heel
against the
All-American. Well, Scott Steiner is now the All-American good guy and the champion. Yokozuna would have had to have beaten The Undertaker.
And there's no streak.
At WrestleMania, there would have been no streak.
Wow. Hats off.
There would have been no streak. SummerSlam that year would have been booked Scott Steiner versus Yokozuna for the heavyweight championship.
That also means that Taker never wins his first WWF title away from Hulk Hogan.
No. Yes, he did that in 91.
Yes, he did. I'm sorry.
Yes. He would not have, one, he wouldn't have the streak, first off. Two, who knows if the momentum would have stayed.
Yeah. Especially, because at that time, they would have been, if Steiner's world champion, one has to think in the mind of Vince McMahon, if Steiner's selling tickets, then automatically we're getting away from the gimmicks.
Automatically, you've got the Hulk Hogan push.
It means that guys like Warrior, Mach, and Hogan, the gimmick is losing its value.
Yes.
Obviously, that conversation retailers itself to The Undertaker because that's a gimmick. What that changes for the better prospect is that circa 95 and 96, instead of the cartoon booking, you're getting
the athletic booking.
Talented, athletic, hard-hitting.
Michaels would have still pushed in 96. Actually, he probably would have been pushed a lot sooner.
But I can tell you this much: the Click would never have been allowed to run rampant as they did, because Scott Steiner would have probably legitimately beat the fuck out of Kevin Nash.
Yeah, it would not have happened. But then I believe that after Yokozuna, if they would have booked Scott, this is just all from me looking up a bunch of stuff. If Scott Steiner would have gotten past Yokozuna, you would have had Rick versus Scott to main event Survivor Series that year, and then you would have went to the next year's WrestleMania.
Go ahead.
And the next year's WrestleMania, you would have had Bret versus Steiner 2.
In the rematch. That also means, where does that leaves us?
That would have been WrestleMania 10.
95? No, 96.
No, it would have been 94.
94?
Yep.
Okay, so 94 Mania turns to Bret and
versus Steiner 2.
So following that,
research-wise, he would have dropped the title to Bret. Bret probably would have pushed against maybe Marty Jannetty, maybe Shawn Michaels earlier than WrestleMania 12, but you would have got the younger Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid right out of the rocker Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart in his prime, which would have sold tickets. You could have also got Bret and Owen in 94 for the championship.
Or Scott and Owen.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to go with it. But with Scott Steiner getting that trigger pulled and the belt put on him, he would have had to have wrestled Yokozuna that year at SummerSlam, which means there would have been no streak.
That also means Luger never gets his push in the WWF.
No. But Luger never really got a push in the WWF.
No, but they wouldn't have even needed the talent.
They wouldn't have needed it. And you realize that all of this was changed the day of the Intrepid Body Slam Challenge. Originally slated in 93 when the Body Slam Challenge took place on the Intrepid, it was originally supposed to be Scott Steiner body slamming Yokozuna, and they changed it to Luger. Which led to Luger's trip across America.
The whole trajectory of it all changes.
Yep.
We'd be talking now.
You would have had Scott Steiner come in as the champion and body slam Yokozuna. And off to SummerSlam you would go.
Wow.
Instead of Yoko being the champion who was being slammed.
That's damn good. I am thoroughly impressed.
Just goes to show you, if I put my mind to something, I look at everything, man.
Well done. Well done. Give me some.
Appreciate it.
Guys, tell us what you think about Scott Steiner possibly having changed the fucking future of the wrestling business. Let us know in the comments down below. If you like and subscribe, send us an email at prowrestlingthrowdown@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/prowrestlingthrowdown. Follow us on Twitter at prowrestlingtd. And don't forget, we return to Twitch on January 9th at Pro Wrestling Throwdown. Stay tuned for more content throughout the week.